Hi, I'm Eric, and I'm a social studies educator, historian, and host of this, the Everything is a Primary Source podcast. I'm also an avid collector of popular culture artifacts. I love what I find at thrift store outlets, garage sale leftovers, and what I spot just making my way around the built world. I enjoy sorting through boxes of free books and magazines, not to mention online collections like Internet Archive, and of course the Library of Congress. But you don't need to spend your time digging through bins or following online rabbit holes to get a look into the past. The movies and TV we watch, the books we read, and the games we play are all documents of the past. So is fashion, food, music, toys, even the roads we travel on and the places we live and work in. Everything is a primary source. This podcast is the result of exhibiting these kinds of artifacts in public, getting passersby to select an item they connect with, and then chatting with me to see what it says about the time, place, and people who made it. The conversation you are about to hear, therefore, is your history, my history, our history, through popular culture. All right, so I'm with Adam and you also host a podcast.
Yes,
just like me.
I'm the co-host of the Headliner.app podcast. We're a podcast we talk about Pokemon Go.
And what inspired you to make the podcast?
It was 2016. Pokemon was coming back in full force with Pokemon Go releasing, and my co-host Ken and I, we were doing a podcast called Gotta Watch 'Em All, which is all about the anime and rewatching all the episodes.
Yeah.
That turned into us talking about Pokemon Go because it was natural. It came out and we wanted to talk about it, and then it turned into its own show, and it became the driving force.
An endless supply of things to talk about, honestly,
Yes.
because that's one of the things that I'm sure we'll touch on in just a moment about Pokemon Go compared to the other iterations of Pokemon, is that it's so much more driven by the person playing it. They can make any adventure that they want out of Pokemon Go.
Yeah, they can it takes you wherever you want to go. It's, you become a real life trainer with Pokemon Go.
So all those things you just said are very 2010s. In fact, you're one of the few podcasters I've met that, and I don't even belong to this category, that were involved in the medium before COVID.
Yes.
Like COVID seemed to be the thing.
It was the spike. I remember shelves being completely empty of all
the gear,
podcasting gear. Yes.
Because everybody's like, well, I'm at home, so I might as well just talk about what interests me. And
Yep.
And we were all listening to podcasts and so forth. So why don't we? So we're going to talk about the game Pokemon Go, the altered reality. And really was like the first of its kind, right? Because other things have tried to come after
Yes.
it, but it was, if not the first successful attempt at something like that, right?
Yeah, it was the first real world AR experience. They started out, they wanted it to be something to get people out and moving.
Yeah.
So it's all about exploration.
And given the nature of the game itself, and the question we're going to deal with is why did they make it? It seemed like, not to use a pun, but it was in the cards from the beginning, right? Because
Yes.
And I'm sure you're familiar with this. I don't know the exact name of it, but I remember when I was in college, somebody had this game, and I thought it was so cool. It was Pokemon Safari.
Yeah, where you would run around and take pictures.
Yeah,
Or
like-
actually, you were kind of just
Like
stationed.
driving slowly
Yes.
or like walking, and you would take different pictures of Pokemon and then get paid. You move along to the next level based on how good your shots were.
Yes, they had to be good. I remember going to Blockbuster but getting one of those little cards that you would put in, and then it would print out the pictures you took.
That's so cool. So it seemed like something like that. When I first heard what Pokemon Go was, it reminded me of that game. And I said, all right, so that makes perfect sense. Because that is kind of the spirit of Pokemon Go, is to see these things in your real world. And
Yeah, and utilize
the real
their
trainers.
AR photography that's built in.
Yeah. Why do you think, was it just a matter of the technology not being there yet as to why it waited until
2016.
Yeah, I think even when it came out, a lot of the trainers that I've spoke with have come and gone from the game. They come into the game in 2016. You're gonna catch, the first 150, and then after that they kind of just fell, and then nobody really wanted to play anymore. But the game's going strong. Trainers can pretty much catch anything right now.
There's a whole culture around it now.
Yeah.
Versus, we take walks through Portsmouth doing Pokemon Go, and it's like an endless supply of Pokestops and...
Yeah, there's raid days on Wednesdays, spotlight hours on Tuesdays. The game's just grown exponentially. Big real-world events happening all around the world. You've got Go Fest.
Do you think that, you mentioned how Pokemon Go, or we'll just call it Go, because that's what my son calls it too. He's like, want to play some Go? That it's... It revived the game. You said it brought Pokemon back to public attention again, right?
Yes.
Do you think that was part of why Nintendo did it? Were they like, we're seeing maybe a slight plateau of interest in Pokemon? Is that another reason that I think
it works also as a marketing tool, because when they do new releases in the card game, they add that Pokemon or some Pokemon from that TCG set into the game. They also do that with the anime. Like, they just had Pokemon Horizons, and they had Fuecoco and the starters from the new set and or the new series, and from there they put those Pokemon into the game so you could feel like you were playing and watching along at the same time.
Did you know that Everything is a Primary Source now has a series of short videos which, like the podcast, teach social studies concepts through popular culture? Check out the Everything is a Primary Source Finds playlist on YouTube for quick overviews of the artifacts I uncover at Goodwill outlets, pick up from the side of the road, or resurrect from my youth, because I don't throw much out. These are great class starters for teachers, and because each clip ends with citation, they're great for students too. Furthermore, EPS Finds episodes become the starting point for the open source Everything's a Primary Source project, which encourages you and your students, if you have some, to add to the conversation. Or you can just enjoy them as you would any one of the other billions of clips on YouTube. It's up to you. Go to YouTube and become a subscriber to the Everything's a Primary Source channel today. Now, back to the conversation.
It's almost like virtual reality without all the headgear and everything.
Yes.
Because I recall when I was a kid, that's when the first real attempt at making a virtual reality headset, I think it was Nintendo, first came out with it. It was bad. It was all black and red, and it wasn't...
Yeah, I enjoyed it, though, putting my face into that.
Yeah. But it was like, that was the future. We were like, to understand that sometime in the 2010s probably we'd all be strapped on with goggles, but the reality
we're not
is
far off.
Right,
Niantic is working on that.
and when that game came out, when Pokemon Go came out, you might as well have had goggles on, because I remember how swarmed like library front lawns were, or
a specific Pokemon would spawn, and
there would be like crowds of people there, and they'd have signs up, and even the game itself warns you, make sure you
please pay attention to your surroundings. Yeah. I won't say that I haven't tripped off of a sidewalk before.
You're like, whoa,
but
because that's kind of like what, a lot of times, like futurist visions, like people, what they're envisioning the future, it always comes across one way, and it's usually a lot more lofty than what actually the reality is. It's much more subtle. Like back in, again, the 80s, even before that, I mean, the Jetsons envisioned us talking
flying
to
around
each other.
in space cars,
and talking to each other. A phone call would be a picture call. It eventually got that way. I think in the last week, most people listening to this have done at least one Zoom call.
Yeah, Zoom call or right? FaceTime, something like that.
And we're not like, oh my God, this is a video call. I just kind of so gradually got into our, and so I feel like Pokemon Go is the same kind of thing where back in the 70s or the 80s, that's how we envisioned, video gaming would eventually become something you didn't have to stay stationary in your house to do.
And this is the best. You can literally take it wherever you go. It's really nice when you take it to a new town or a new place and you don't know the directions of where you're going, but you can follow the Pokestops that you've spun because the halos go away. So you can follow your way back just by having that knowledge.
And you almost get an experience of two worlds that you're visiting for the first time.
Exactly.
The real one, and when my son, we went over to, make it seem like we just took a trip around the corner. We went to Europe 2 years ago, and we had some downtime throughout our trip, and we ended up, there he is. At one point, my wife was taking a nap in the hotel, and my son John, there he is. This gentleman has a Pokemon Go podcast. So we were just talking about, why don't you come over here? Do you remember when we were in Amsterdam?
Yeah.
And what did we do with our Pokemon Go game?
Got some Pokemon, I guess.
Well, remember we walked around the block, and we played Pokemon Go the first time around, and then we played Jurassic World Alive on the way back. And so it was like getting 3 worlds in one.
Yeah. And there's so much you can do. There's Pikmin Bloom as well. There's Monster Hunter. That's another one that Niantic's worked on.
But it seems like Go is the one that's hung on.
It brings nostalgia every time. They just did updates to the avatar. They rediscover you, rediscover your world. They just did a revamp on the AR world, or not the AR world, but like your map on the. When you click a Pokemon, it comes into the wild screen or whatnot. That's all been revamped. So if you're near a beach, you're going to see beach. If you're near like a city, you're going to see buildings in the background.
He's pointed that out to me before, too, that because we live near a pond, like a lake, and he's like, okay, the water types tend to be around here.
Yes.
Because and I think that's so brilliant, because I could imagine somebody that's kind of tired of the game if it's the same Pokemon every single day.
Yes. And now they introduce seasons, so now you've got different seasons which bring different Pokemon. So if you have been able to catch Pidgeys and Rattatas, next season you might just find Weedles and Caterpies. So it's really nice that they've updated the game in that sense as well.
So before we finish up, what's your favorite Pokemon Go story? Was there? What did it for you? Were you hooked right away, or was
that's hard? There's so many good ones. The countless Go Fests that I've been a part of. Just the community. It's not really a specific memory. It is the memories that keep happening. It's we do a Monday night Zoom call with our community, so I already had these friends and these friendships going into GoFest, and then being able to see them physically and being able to play the game that we all love and we all talk about weekly.
That's so awesome. And I've heard that before. In fact, 2 years ago when I was here for Free Comic Book Day, I think it's the people that are right over there, actually. They have an anime convention that happens every year, and they said the same thing, that it's about community. It's about, the internet, let's be honest, has some weird avenues you can go down.
Yes.
But one of the greatest things it's given us is allowed for people to connect when we're not right next door.
Right, and then COVID happened, and then all the online communities, those really grew and made it a point to keep the game alive.
Yeah, and I think it's so great, people having that resource of, it kind of reminds me of, are you familiar with EVE Online or Second Life or even like World of Warcraft type, where it's like a second world where people get to talk to each other and kind of, and that's all, those are some of the positives that come from a global World Wide Web thing. So where can people find, I'm assuming your podcast can be found wherever there is a podcast.
If you just search Lurd Up, pretty much anywhere. essentially, if you go to PokemonProfessor.com, that gives you links to every single one of the shows on the Pokemon Professor Network. I do a secondary podcast, Special Conditions. It's about the TCG. There's many more on there. There's ones that happen daily. There's ones that happen weekly. There's ones about Wayfarer.
Awesome.
The Way Spotters podcast. Shout out to Jamal and Chris. They talk about the map and how to expand the map if you don't understand how to enter a POI into the system.
Well, I have somebody right here that's going to be definitely interested in that, because I think we sometimes get frustrated sometimes that we can't.
It's a great listen. They're so knowledgeable, and don't be afraid to reach out. They will answer any question possible.
Well, thank you so much, Adam, for stopping by and your willingness to do this, and we just made another oral history.
Excellent.
Take care.
Popular culture, by definition, connects and unites us, and proves that people of different backgrounds, in fact, have a lot in common with one another. I hope you enjoyed this conversation, at least in part, for that reason. If it connects with you and you'd like to add to it, or any of the podcast episodes, just visit everything-history.com and search for the Everything is a Primary Source project, which can be found in the classroom section of the website. We'd love to hear what you have to say. Be sure to rate and share this podcast wherever you are listening to it now, and follow Everything as a Primary Source on social media, including YouTube and especially Instagram. Thank you for listening to the EPS podcast, where everything is a primary source.